All right. Well, ready to get started?
Ready?
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming out. Coffee with the Candidates. It's our second coffee of the day. We double booked him today, so it's a lot of fun. Drinking a little too much coffee, but we'll get
It's
after it.
great coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking with Mr. Derek Babcock, who is, of course, running for Parish Council, District 6.
Yes.
The way that we've been kicking these off is we do a little Q&A between myself and the candidate, and then we turn it over so you can talk to anybody that came out so that you can chew the fat with them.
Good.
So first things first, introductions and biography.
All right. Well, I'm Derek Babcock. I'm self-employed business owner. I have a commercial insurance agency. Been self-employed since 2003. Have 4 offices today, 22 employees, and that's sometimes during the busy season we'll have as many as 60, but typically run about 22 throughout the year. I have 4 children. They're making me feel old. My baby turned 13 yesterday, so I've got 13, 15, 18, and 21. So,
Oh, wow.
And I've been involved in a lot of different activities, local organizations, some projects that we've done, like Citizens for Highways and Infrastructure years ago. At the state level, I've worked with Louisiana Family Forum since 2004, and we lobby a lot of bills at the legislature. We'll typically weigh in on about 40 to 50 bills every year, and our issues are the faith and family issues.
Right.
And so, while we weigh in on those issues, the process for the things that I would be working on at the parish level is the same. So even though we might be working on a road issue or a drainage issue, the process is the same as if when we're fighting for say a marriage or a family bill at the legislature. And so I feel like it's important that we have somebody at the local level who has that kind of experience.
Sure.
So, and that's what I've done. I've been elected to a couple of different organizations. I'm not a career politician. I've never been elected to public office, but I have been elected to the Parish Executive Committee, which is the local Republican party.
Right.
And then I've been elected to the Republican State Central Committee, which again I think is important because you have to be able to work with people and bring people together to get things done. And through the Republican State Central Committee, I've worked with legislators all over the state. And so I have that rapport. And I think that, if somebody's elected to this position, they could call a lawmaker and they'll probably take that phone call. But rapport makes a difference. And rapport takes time to build. And over the last 15 years, I've built rapport with our local lawmakers as well as the state lawmakers all over the state. So so that's why I feel like I have some good assets that I could provide to this council to just really help to hit the ground running and make a good difference in the issues that we're dealing with here.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, first thing that comes to mind for me is insurance.
Yeah.
So definitely get your take on what's going on with the parish right now. With the National Flood Insurance Program and the parish not necessarily hitting those benchmarks that are required for NFIP coverage.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that, of course, the clock is ticking on that too.
Right.
So they've got to come up with something. One of the things that I'm promoting as I'm going around is a parish-wide drainage district. And so we have, of course, 5 drainage districts here in Livingston Parish, but I think that we need to bring them together. I'm not saying that we get rid of the 5 and create one, but we take a representative from each of the 5 boards. Each has 5 board members. We're taking a representative from each one to create a parish-wide board, and so then that board could help the administration to come up with a good plan. And it's unfortunately, a lot of people have communicated to me, and from what I can gather from what I've looked at, if we got a pile of money from the federal government today to fix a lot of our drainage issues, there's not really a plan in place to do that. Right. And so the government, is asking for a plan to be able to continue the insurance coverage. So,
sure.
So, that's going to happen before I get elected. So, but I think they need to hurry up with it.
Sure.
So, I think we need to have plans ready ahead of time, a lot sooner. We need to be projecting out years rather than kind of right now we're scrambling. So
Right.
yeah,
And so that idea of kind of having a master drainage district, would that be kind of
Right.
like an overseer of the drainage districts that we have, or a supplement to? How do you see that?
I wouldn't see it as an overseer necessarily. My thought is that it would be a way to formalize cooperation and communication between the districts. And so, they could share best practices. And then also, I think when you start to formalize that cooperation, they can start to prioritize projects that are parish-wide, and then start to address those projects in a way that really I think is the most effective. And that's, water flows north to south. And so we really need to address a lot of these issues from the south to the north. Because when you open up these drains in the north, not in the south, then you're sending water down there that the people in the south of us can't deal with.
Yeah.
And that's my district, most of that. So,
Right.
And I get it. They say it's unfunded district, and that's an issue that we need to look at. But I think that if we formalize this parish-wide board, again, made up of members from each board that exists today, then we can start that process to address those issues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, another big topic in parish council, of course, is the master plan. Of course, it was adopted by resolution in 2013. Of course, a lot's changed. Then we've had the master plan review committee, and now there's the effort to see about passing an ordinance to adopt the plan itself as is.
Yeah.
What are your feelings on that?
And I've read through the master plan, and I've highlighted different parts of it, and we need to have a master plan. I mean, it's for development that's coming in, for business that comes in, business wants to know what they can expect if they're going to put a location in.
Right.
And so the master plan is important. The one that we have today was written back in 2013. And so some things have changed since then. Obviously, developments have come up, but the 2016 flood. And so I think that it needs to be reviewed before it's accepted the way it is today.
Yeah.
And so, I'm all for a master plan. I think we need it. So, I don't know that I would vote to accept it right now.
Sure.
Exactly the way it is. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, one of the big topics in the master plan is that of zoning. District 6, how do you see zoning affecting District 6?
My position on zoning is that it needs to do two things, and that's protect your property rights and protect your property values. And so in my district, there's a lot of rural area.
Right.
And so, if I have 10 acres of land and I have a nice big garage and I want to work on some cars on the weekend in my garage, but I don't want somebody telling me I can't do that. I got 10 acres of land. But there's other areas where there's the population density is different, and you might be on a smaller quarter-acre piece of property or whatever. And then, of course, those economic corridors. And again, business doesn't want to come in unless they know what to expect. And so with some zoning, a business knows if I put my location here, I know these things aren't going to happen, and so I'm okay to do that. At the same time, if I buy a house in a neighborhood, I mean, that's one of the biggest investments a person would make. I want to know that my property value is going to be protected. And if somebody comes and puts a development right in the middle of my neighborhood that decreases my property value, well, then I have an issue with that. So again, I think zoning is something we need to do. It just needs to be done right, and it needs to make sure that we protect those two things, which is property rights and property values.
Right.
So.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right about protecting your interests, because nobody wants to build a house or open a business and then have a a jet engine factory open up next door.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's again, what may be right for one area of our parish isn't necessarily right for another area, and so it needs to be done that way, to where it's not a parish-wide just here's how things are going to work, but it's these areas are this way and this area is that way. So
yeah. Well, what do you think is the role of a parish council person? Do you think it is to implement the will of your constituency, or do you think it is to lead with your best expertise and the best information available to you?
I think it's both, actually.
Mm-hmm.
The people elect you to represent them.
Sure.
But they'll elect you for your qualifications. So your leadership ability, your experience that you have, knowledge that you have. And so I think that in a lot of these things, they'll trust you because they know your positions on things. But then when there's other things where, like in zoning, I think it's going to be important to get a lot of community feedback from my constituents so that I make sure I'm representing them the best way in that conversation. So,
right.
Again, I think it's not answer the question direct, but I think it's both.
Sure.
Know? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
Well, last question I have for you.
Okay.
It comes off of our job application here at the bookstore.
Okay.
So we always ask every potential candidate for a job here the same question. Give us 2 books that have most influenced your life.
Okay.
One fiction and one nonfiction.
Fiction, one nonfiction. I read Barefoot the Billionaire by John Huntsman. Was a book that I read, long book, but it was really good. It talked about where he came from as a child, and of course a very poor family, and as he got out on his own and started taking risks in business, and a lot of those risks didn't work, but some of those risks did, and that's what made him a billionaire. And so it was just about failure is never an end. It's a wiser beginning to a new beginning. And so but he took literally hundreds of risks, and it was just a small few that worked, but it made him a billionaire. And so that book just really encouraged me, again, when you go out and you take risks and you try to do things, and the outcome is not always certain, that it's you give it your best, you give it 100%, and if it doesn't work out the first time, you try it again. So, the other one would be Talent is Never Enough by John Maxwell. I had my kids read this book too, because you have a lot of people who are very talented in an area, but if you take that talent for granted and you don't refine it and work on it, and the discipline of continuing to make yourself better, and you just try to just rely on your natural talents, well, it's never enough. You always got to be in the sharpening the saw anyway.
Sure.
Stephen Covey, So, was that? Let's see, and then. Did I have fiction, nonfiction? I guess Talent is Never Enough is a kind of a book, just a story by lesson by John Maxwell anyway.
Sure.
Yeah,
well, we can count it, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, there we go. So,
talking about those personal talents and that sort of thing. One of my favorite is a Strengths Finder.
Yeah.
It's a great sort of testing apparatus, and gives you a lot of context for developing your personal strengths and also working with other people in their strengths. So I'll have to get you on that one. If you
Marcus Buckingham is. I, in fact, got a chance to get to know him very well. A very close friend of mine actually was his right-hand guy for a while.
Yeah.
I loved it. It was kind of a different concept, because for so long people said you would work on the things that you're weak at.
Right.
And he came in and said, no, work on the things that you're good at and get better. And it's just. That's a really good book too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Well, very cool.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming out with us
Appreciate
tonight,
you
having
doing
coffee with us, and I'll turn you loose.
All right,
so
thank
you can chat with folks.
Appreciate
Thanks.
that.